Howdy, howdy, Sue Devil here, and welcome to our primer video on our 901 plus gold infantry testing, where I'm just going to review the testing methodology, the way that I analyze the data, and I'm going to go through all the data so you can see it for yourself and do an example of the test, so that if you have looked at one of the top 5 video, the bottom 5 video, and you're wondering exactly how the testing was done, this video is for you, because I will go over some of the details and even some of the predictions that I made before the testing started. Now, this was sort of the most ambitious test that I did. We had 24 units that are in the 901 gold and up range. I didn't test any of the... This test is not about regiments of renown, though I did test against the regiment of renown in the Blades of the Blood Queen, because I wanted a unit that would beat every unit in this whole test. Really, we have everywhere from Bestigor, Chosen, Sisters of Slaughter, Harganeth Executioners, Ironbreakers. Really, it is your top tier 1 most powerful infantry in the game. And the tests that I did were against 5 units. Now, I went against the Blades of the Blood Queen for the first test because I wanted a unit that would beat all of them, so that I could look at that data in that test. Then I tested against the Berserkers, Foot Squires, Longbeards, and Clan Rats. Clan Rats are really just to represent the true trash. How well do these top tier units clear trash? Longbeards are really your armored defensive infantry. Foot Squires are your semi-armored offensive armor piercing anti-infantry infantry, and your Berserkers are your lowly armored high DPS infantry. So I wanted to get a reasonable test. Now, I did all the tests on live streams this time, so the testing took almost 26 hours, 25.8 hours roughly. I think if I would have not been on the live stream, I would have done a little bit faster. We did 600 tests, and we took 2,400 data points, and I will go over how I analyze the test. So I'm just going to flip over to how the tests start. Now, I do use 2 mods for this. I use pick any general, so you can pick any you only pick one unit. The advantage of that is you don't have any units interacting with each other in terms of their leadership or morale. So a unit just breaks as it is. And I tested them against the Blades of the Blood Queen. The second mod I have is unit testing field. So I wanted a nice little field to test, and it is very consistent. The whole purpose of my testing is I want to make it consistent. I say this time and time again, is that this testing is not the end all and be all. It is just a piece of the puzzle. There are many ways to test units, many ways to evaluate that testing, and this is not in context testing, and as far as in context of the rest of the army, in context of the faction, in context of the matchups that these units are capable of doing. So it is a very myopic test, a very narrow test to test something very specific, which is how infantry does against other infantry. And that is it in a single one-on-one test. So some of the consequences of this test are, for example, Dark Elf units never get to use their murderous mastery or murderous prowess because it never sets off. So when you see where the Dark Elf units rank in the end, you know that they are slightly better than what they show. The Tomb King unit, for example, won't get its faction heals, and Greenscan units always get a WA somewhere in there, but they won't get the WA in this sort of testing. So this is a very, very narrow set of tests, but it is very repeatable, and I'll show you how I do that test now. So the reason I lay my tests out like this is because I do want them to be repeatable, because I want them to be valid over time and to set themselves as a foundation to test against in the future, so that if I want to come back and look at them, I can just go and pick the test. So a unit testing field, very small, 100 by 100. I just click the unit, take off the guard mode, and I will start the battle and immediately tell them to go attack. Now, I'll fast forward it, and then what I'll do is I'll stop right here as they are connecting. They're not quite connected, and then I will go over to the database, and in this, they connected at 50 seconds. So I'll say the start of this battle, where they actually started doing damage to each other, is at 59:50 approximately. They're doing a little damage to each other, but it's close enough. Then I let the battle go until one of the units routs, and then I stop the timer. Now, for units that are unbreakable, I go until the unit is very near death, less than 100 hit points, and then I stop. And for units that are undead, I go until their leadership is below 0 and they start to crumble, because I do not want that crumbling phase in the data. So, typical here is I'll start the test, and these tests go pretty fast because the Blades of the Blood Queen have a massive anti-infantry bonus, and as soon as that stops, that should be very quickly here, and boom. So that battle will stop right there, and I'll go and take the time. It's 58:55, and in the actual testing I had 58:53, 58:57, 58:58. So you can see they're generally close. I do 5 tests because I want to even level out some of the variance. 7 tests is a little bit better, but it's a little bit too big for the amount of testing that I would be doing here. So 5 tests is what I did. And then I take the battle time. So I get the amount of seconds, and I average that as a total of 56 seconds for the entire battle. And oh, by the way, I also take the date that I took the battle. I always have it on here so that, let's say you're looking at this video in 2021 after game 3 has been released, and you want to test against these 2 units and see if something has changed. You can actually just look and compare and go back and find the patch that I did the testing on and everything. And this, by the way, is the Festag beta, right? I should actually put that Festag beta. Festag beta, just for reference, so anyone knows what testing I did. And this was before the Festag patch was released to live. It's the beta. All right, and then what I do is I go look at the starting hit points and the finishing hit points. So I'll go and I'll say, okay, these Blades of the Blood Queen ended with 2930 hit points, and I'll write that down here, and that looks about what, 2854, 3440, and I'll look at the Bestigor's finishing hit points. They finished with 1759. I'll go type that in here. You see 1728, 1667. Then I will look at the starting hit points compared to the ending hit points over the time for each unit to get a DPS each unit is doing to the other, and DPS is damage per second. So the Blades were doing 101 hit points of damage per second against the Bestigors. The Bestigors 55.2 in this example. Then when that's done, to get a value comparison, because I don't just want to see who wins. That doesn't really matter in a game with limited funding. You start with 12,400 gold in multiplayer, and that's all you have. So we want to look at value in terms of gold, and it's a subjective choice that I've made, but I think it's been a relatively good measurement, where I take the starting hit points and the ending hit points of each unit, multiply it through by their gold cost, and then subtract them out. So I look at the gold differential. So it turns out the Blades of the Blood Queen won 22 gold in this, and overall they won 75 gold against the Bestigor. That means if all you had was the Blades of the Blood Queen and Bestigors, that the Blades, even if you had an even amount of each and could perfectly get them to fight, the Blades would win because they would be pulling gold. They would be winning that value fight against the Bestigor. And this is something very interesting, because you can see Skaven clan rats pull positive value against some of these high tier units, so that this is sort of how you test that value. This is one of the factors. The second is gold per minute, saying not only do I win gold, how fast do I win that gold? And this is another important measurement. So I look at the time of the battle and the gold per minute and the gold differential. I do not look at the gold ratio. This is a different way of comparing things that I'm using. Why is not the win-loss ratio? I see. Okay. And then I look at the win-loss ratio. The win-loss ratio is for when units are very close. I have some data up top, which I will review at the very end of the set of, I think, 5 videos I'm going to be doing. But then that's really to compare units that are very close, and to look at, if you add 2 chevrons, can you start to change that win-loss ratio, and it's better over 7 battles. But gold ratio is how much gold did it take me to win that gold. That's a different factor. I really look at the battle time, the gold differential, and the gold per minute. And then I will look at all those 3 things when we do the final analysis, because what I'm going to want to do is put that data together, and I will do a final video after all the top 5, bottom 5, middle 14 are done, and review all this and do a little bit of back testing, because I always do, just to make sure everything seems correct. All right, so that is really the primer. This is the testing that I do, and this is how I do it. I actually wanted to go slowly. You can always pause this as you go through if you really want to see. I want to just show all of the tests and all of the results. If you ever want to go through this and find a specific set of results for a specific matchup in the future, this is the video to do it in, because I will, you can just go until you find the unit that you want in the matchup that you want, pause the video and take the data if you ever want to. And that's really for someone who might be looking at this again in the future, I don't know, 2022, a few years down the road, and you just want to see how did this matchup used to play out, and just have a bit of understanding of what the game used to be and how a unit has developed, whether for the good or for the bad, over the years. And that is it. We go down to 1,100 cells, but really it is only 600 tests, and then the 2,400 data points. So, and I do have all of the testing. It is on the live stream, so if anyone wants to go look at it, it's just the live testing is just a chance to sort of relax and go through it. So, this testing was started, the January the 12th, 2019. And I actually made my predictions on January 5th, 2019, much before I started the testing, after I had these things defined. And I have that video up if you'd like to see it. And this is where I said, this is the order I thought all these units would fit in, because speculations and predictions are fun. And I asked for people to make predictions in the comment section of that video, because I thought it would be interesting, because I don't know, it is fun. It is really fun to do this. So I figured High Elves, Swordbusters Hoeth would pull the most value out of any unit in this testing, followed by the Chosen with Great Weapon. The Ironbreakers would be third. Harganeth Executioners for the Dark Elves fourth. Hammers would be fifth. Yeah, there's a little bit of dwarf bias there in my in my predictions, possibly. Black Orcs and the Greenskins would be number 6. Chaos Chosen would be 7. Bestigors from the Beastmen 8. The Norskin Marauders Champions with Great Weapons 9. The Dark Elf Sisters of Slaughter number 10. Vampire Coast Depth Guard number 11. The Skaven Plague Monk Censor Bearers number 12. The Chosen with Halberds number 13. The Marauder Champions from Norska 14. Lizardmen 15 with Temple Guard. Phoenix Guard 16 at 1,400. The Dark Elves with the Blackguard Nagaron just behind at 1,300, number 17. Storm Vermin coming in down low at 18. Vampire Coast Depth Guard Polearm at 1,300 at 19. Death Runners I figured would be ranked 20. Storm Vermin with Halberd all the way down ranked 21. The Wood Elves, I wasn't really sure where to put these guys. I know the Azrai Spears are bad, but I didn't know where to put the Wildwood Rangers, so I put them as 22 and 23, and I put Dwarf Giant Slayers at 24. And that is part of a prediction from the last set, where the regular Slayers finished very low, and I figured they just don't have defense. They're not very good in infantry matchups, so that's why I put them there. Anyways, that is the primer video. That is the prediction, and that is the list of testing. I will now work on getting out the top 5, bottom 5, middle 14, and then after that I will do a summary video, and I'll get them out as quick as I can. So hope you found that interesting, and I will see you soon.